Working at the FSA as a trainee under Roy Stryker, Parks created one of his best-known photographs, American Gothic, Washington, D.C., named after the iconic Grant Wood painting American Gothic, a legendary painting of a traditional, stoic, white American farmer and daughter, which bore a striking, but ironic, resemblance to the Parks photograph of a black menial laborer. Parks's haunting photograph shows a black woman, Ella Watson, who worked on the cleaning crew of the FSA building, standing stiffly in front of an American flag hanging on the wall, a broom in one hand and a mop in the background. Parks had been inspired to create the image after encountering racism repeatedly in restaurants and shops in the segregated capital city. Upon viewing the photograph, Stryker said that it was an indictment of America, and that it could get all of his photographers fired. He urged Parks to keep working with Watson, which led to a series of photographs of her daily life. Parks said later that his first image was overdone and not subtle. Other commentators have argued that it drew strength from its polemical nature and its duality of victim and survivor, and thus affected far more people than his subsequent pictures of Mrs. Watson. Parks's overall body of work for the federal government, using his camera as a weapon, would draw far more attention from contemporaries and historians than that of all other black photographers in federal service at the time. Today, most historians reviewing federally commissioned black photographers of that era focus almost exclusively on Parks. After the FSA disbanded, Parks remained in Washington, D.C. as a correspondent with the Office of War Information, where he photographed the all-black 332d Fighter Group, known as the Tuskegee Airmen. He was unable to follow the group in the overseas war theater, so he resigned from the OWI. He would later follow Stryker to the Standard Oil Photography Project in New Jersey, which assigned photographers to take pictures of small towns and industrial centers. The most striking work by Parks during that period included Dinner Time at Mr. Hercules Brown's home, Somerville, Maine, 1944, Grease Plant Worker, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 1946, Car Loaded with Furniture on Highway, 1945, Self-Portrait, 1945, and Ferry Commuters, Staten Island, NY, 1946. Parks renewed his search for photography jobs in the fashion world. Following his resignation from the Office of War Information, Parks moved to Harlem and became a freelance fashion photographer for Vogue under the editorship of Alexander Liberman. Despite racist attitudes of the day, Vogue editor Liberman hired him to shoot a collection of evening gowns. As Parks photographed fashion for Vogue over the next few years, he developed the distinctive style of photographing his models in motion rather than in static poses. During this time, he published his first two books, Flash Photography, 1947, and Camera Portraits, Techniques and Principles of Documentary Portraiture, 1948. A 1948 photographic essay on a young Harlem gang leader won Parks a staff job as a photographer and writer with America's leading photo magazine, Life. His involvement with Life would last until 1972. For over 20 years, Parks produced photographs on subjects including fashion, sports, Broadway, poverty, and racial segregation, as well as portraits of Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Muhammad Ali, and Barbra Streisand. He became one of the most provocative and celebrated photojournalists in the United States. His photographs for Life magazine, namely his 1956 photo essay, titled The Restraints, Open and Hidden, illuminated the effects of racial segregation while simultaneously following the everyday lives and activities of three families in and near Mobile, Alabama: the Thorntons, Causeys, and Tanners. As curators at the High Museum of Art Atlanta note, while the photo essay by Parks served as decisive documentation of the Jim Crow South and all of its effects, he did not simply focus on demonstrations, boycotts, and brutality that were associated with that period. Instead, he emphasized the prosaic details of the lives of several families.